All right, so today we're looking at the first in a series of lectures on social inequality and stratification, looking at issues of power and privilege in society, which during times of crisis, such as we are in now, are only exacerbated or made worse. So in this first module, we're going to be looking at the question of what is stratification. What do we mean when we talk about strata? We'll look at some empirical trends, what's going on in society, um, in American society in particular, and comparing globally. And then in third and fourth video, we'll be talking about how to think about economic classes and poverty and its traps. So what is stratification? What do we mean when we talk about stratification in society? Merriam-Webster defines a stratum as a bed or layer artificially made. And this last part is important to my mind because a lot of the times when we speak about inequality, we think about it in very naturalistic terms, meaning we think it's something that's sort of built into our nature. Some people are better and worse at things. Some people are just more competitive. Some people work harder. Some people work less hard. Naturally. But when we actually look at how inequality happens and is created in society, we'll see that there are particular mechanisms through which inequality is produced and is reproduced on a daily basis through which we make inequality happen. There's a lot of ways of looking at strata in society, but the important thing to think of here is that there's some people on top, those top layers, and some people on the bottom. For Marx, as we'll see in the second video, or third video, pardon me, this comes down to those who own and control businesses, capitalists, and those of us who have to work for a living and have to go work for those capitalists or workers. The capitalists own and control businesses, so they pay our wages, they have more power. At the same time, for Marx, as we'll see, it's only the workers who create the wealth of those who own the businesses. We could also divide this up by race and gender. We know, for example, that white men, or Caucasian men, if we want to be very technical, make more for the same job than women, particularly women of color. For every $1 earned by a Caucasian man, a woman of color earns about 68 cents. So here again, we're looking at different layers of people in society. Some people have more power, some people have less. So when we think about social inequality, we're talking about unequal access to three things, the three P's we sometimes call them. One is power. This means the ability to shape others to our will, to change society, to make important decisions, and to have those decisions followed. So here we're talking about access to positions of political power, to positions of control over a company, to managerial positions, getting raises. People who are professors have a fair amount of power. Well, not really. I don't. Very few college presidents, for example, are people of color. So access to power, access to property. Here, we're focusing on economic inequality. Things we own, income, who has access to that? These are very important questions. If you own a business or you own a home, you're much better off because you have wealth versus if you're paying rent every week and just making ends meet, or maybe you don't own anything at all. Maybe you're out on the street. We think about this historically. In the South, this came down to those who were allowed to own and control the labor of slave laborers, while those who did that labor, the slaves, didn't have access to their own bodies, much less their own labor. So in unequal access to power, people are excluded from powerful positions, people are kept from having property, have a lower income, and may have less prestige, right? Prestige can be very important. College professors aren't necessarily paid a ton, though there are some who make in the six figures. But when you tell someone you're a professor, you teach, at least used to be that you got a fair amount of um, respect for that. It opens some doors for you. Um, here we think about social networks, access to people. They say it's not what you know, but who you know. Well, if you went to school with the Clintons, uh, Bill Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, then you know someone who has access to a lot of power in our society. So we can divide people up into different layers based on how much power, property, and prestige they have and have access to. In this video and this week, we're going to be focusing on economic inequality. Why do we start with economic inequality? First off, take a look at this picture. Pause the video and tell me, what do you see? What is this thing? Is it a boat? Uh, What about now? You can probably tell it's an attempt at a toaster. This is from the Toaster Project. And this involved a journalist trying to go around and actually build a toaster, a simple thing that warms our bread from scratch. Sourcing the metal, sourcing the plastic, the wiring, everything. Uh, Part of what he was trying to prove is how something as simple as a toaster is extraordinarily difficult to make on our own. Most of us are not capable of making most of the things we need on a daily basis. We buy them. And this is why economic inequality in our society is so important. Money acts like a barrier between us and all of the things that we need. So when we think about economic inequality in a society like ours, a capitalist society, which we'll get into later, economic inequality is crucial because having money, having wealth, having property determines a lot of how well we are going to do and how well we will be. So this begs the question, how unequal is the distribution of money in our society?